I was recently talking to a friend, and we were reflecting on how much has happened over the past 6 months, not to mention the past 20 months. How much we've tried to give and do and be, how our communities have responded with so much heart, but also how tired we all are. And then she said, how much worse could it get? But don't say that. Don't jinx it. So I obviously blame her for the current war between Israel and Iran. No, not really. But this feeling of things just piling on and escalating every day, it does a number on the human spirit. I think we're seeing some of that in each other right now. And I think we see that here in Parshat Shalach Lecha too, how it feels, the consequence of that reality, and maybe some things that we might do about it too. So we meet our ancestors at a moment when Moses is ready to scope out this land of milk and honey that God has told them so much about. He chooses 12 spies, Moses chooses 12 spies, one from each tribe, and provides the group with a set of specific questions to answer. Are the people who dwell in the land chazak, strong, or rafa, weak? Ma'at, few, or rav, many? Is the country in which they dwell tova, good, or ra'ah, bad? Are the cities that they live in machanim, wide open spaces, or are they mivtsarim, fortified and walled? Is the soil shmeina, fertile, or raza, poor? And yesh ba'etz, are there many trees? It seems that Moses is trying to assess which strategies they will need to enter the land. But, as we may know, the spies come back after 40 days of reconnaissance and foil his plans. While two of the spies, Joshua and Caleb, famously say, Yachol nuchal, of course we can do this, let's go. 10 of the spies come back and they tell a different story. They say, we came to the land that you sent us to. It does indeed flow with milk and honey, and this is its fruit. But then, Efes ki az ha'am hayoshev ba'aretz. Efes, however, the people who inhabit the country are powerful, and the cities are fortified and very large. Moreover, we saw the Anakites there, which is to say, we cannot successfully enter this land. They answer Moses' questions honestly, but they are crestfallen. And in fact, while their answer tells us some about the land, it reveals a great deal more about the state of their mind and their hearts. Many commentators criticize the 10 spies for having a lack of faith in God's power to make them victorious, a lack of faith in God in general. But I think a different reading of the text reveals something more going on here. Moments after this, they run into battle, sure that God's going to have their back. So maybe it's not a lack of faith, but rather a lack of fuel. When they answer the questions that Moses posed, they say the land is amazing, but. And the Hebrew word they use is not just any word for but, or rather, or however. Instead, they use the much more rare word, Efes. Efes ki az ha'am. The mystical teacher Ramban explains that the use of the word Efes means that they saw this task as utterly impossible. Why? Because Efes means zero. Zero left to give, nothing. Because in this moment, they aren't talking about the land that they went and scouted. They are talking about themselves. Someone could go and enter the land. Someone could take on the giants, sure, but not us, because we are at zero. running on fumes. We are Ephes. And so this task is impossible, not because of it, but because of us. They have gone from slavery to thinking that they lost their leader, to the golden calf punishments, to the public immolation of Nadav and Avihu, to the disastrous plague of the quail, and now to take on giants and a walled city and an army? Ephes. We've got nothing left. The problem, of course, is that even though they have been through so much already, the most important tasks still lie ahead of them, and they are depleted. Maybe we know this feeling. Maybe we felt it in recent weeks, or maybe we think, I cannot handle one more thing, knowing well that one more thing is definitely coming. And there are a lot of ways that we can land in that place of feeling like we have no capacity. We could simply feel burnt out, spent, like we've been pushing and we've lost the thread. Or it's been all output with not enough input spiritually or physically or emotionally. Or we could go numb. In a recent article by Russian dissident Masha Gessen, they write about this phenomenon of normalization among people living under authoritarian governments, saying, in this country too, fewer and fewer things can surprise us. Reports of human tragedy and extreme cruelty have become routine, not news. So our drive to act is just numbed out. We lose sight of the urgency. We can't feel it. It's just a very human thing. Or we could simply feel overwhelmed or powerless, overcome by the forest that has obscured the trees. And so we find ourselves also at Ephes. I remember a time back in Boston. It was my second year as a rabbi, so about 18 years ago. I was running my first organizing campaign, and it was all so very new to me. And so many things kept going wrong. And we had this public gathering, this action coming up in a week. And my mentor and friend, Mayor Lakin, called to check in on me, and he started asking me questions about the action, the tasks, the strategy, the players, not unlike Moses' questions. And I burst into tears. And I remember telling him that I had nothing left, that I had run out of gas a week too early, and I was at zero. And suddenly, his questions shifted. He said, why do you think that you have to solve this all by yourself? Now, that specific question was the one that I needed. But it's the shift in perspective that matters most here. He went from asking me questions about the project, the facts, the strategy, to asking me questions about me, to help me see what I needed to keep on going. I think given the stress and trauma that the Israelites had faced up to this point, Moses asked the wrong questions. Before the spies could answer any questions about the land and the tasks ahead, he needed to ask them questions about themselves. What might have been different if Moses had been able to help them assess their own capacity or their health, their own resources for such a journey as the one ahead of them before he sent them? Could they have come back ready? We have a whole summer ahead of us, and as we know, it could just fly by. Or we could use it to get what we need in order to keep on going, to check to see if we are at Ephes, and to fill ourselves or fortify ourselves or nurture ourselves or community ourselves up. Whatever it is that we need to not be exhausted or numbed out or overwhelmed. Because it is quite possible and probable that our greatest tasks also still lie ahead. The war between Israel and Iran may yet escalate. This will need our voice. Anti-Semitism may continue to rear its ugly head. This will need our voice. The hostages are somehow still languishing as captives. We know they still need our voice. The children and innocent civilians in Gaza only have it worse now. On a single day this week, 71 Palestinians were killed trying to get food from these managed and dangerous food distribution centers. My God, 71 families didn't have a loved one come home, and it barely made the news. They still need our voice. Trans youth took a massive hit this week. They will need us too, to help them know that their beautiful lives still have a future that is unfolding. Immigrants need us at their hearings, at their shelters, by their sides. Marches will need to be marched. Liberty will need to be demanded. But if we are at Ephes, how will we ever say what Caleb and Joshua beg the people to say, Yachol Nuchal? Of course we can do this. So this isn't an invitation to take the summer off, but it is an invitation to proactively seek whatever breath the summer gives us to do what our forebears never had the chance to do. We cannot afford to be at Ephes, to stay exhausted or numb or overwhelmed. We are needed. And perhaps we can use Moses's actually quite wise questions as our starting point, not to assess the land, but to assess our spirits. Am Yisrael, are you feeling chazak, strong, or rafa, weak? Do you feel ma'at, alone, or rav, meaningfully connected to others? Does your body generally feel tova, good, or ra'ah, bad? And what do you need? Do you need to be out in machanim, wide open spaces? Do you need to do things that help you feel mivtsarim, fortified and strengthened? Or do you need to find ways to help you take your walls down and be vulnerable again? Is your mind shmena, fertile, ready to receive new ideas, to be inspired, to be creative? Or are you feeling raza, thin, drained, and sparse? Yesh ba'etz? Do you need to walk among the trees, to feel the earth beneath your feet, the sky above you, to see how you are rooted by your ancestors and giving life to all of those who will grow from you? We started this past 6 months knowing that there were tasks ahead that would need all of us in some way. And so it has been. And so we have answered as best we could. But we cannot run on Ephes forever. We need to find the ways to be fortified again and also to be softened again. For when our people had no vision for the next task, the consequences were existential. And so it is for us. Without taking the time to breathe, to eat well, to reconnect with friends and family and community, to laugh, to read, to sleep, to go outside in the rain, to hug the trees, to meditate or hike or make a new friend, without taking the time to interrogate ourselves about how we really are, how will we generate energy enough to care for the stranger, for each other, for our people, for all people? May we recognize in ourselves when we are at Ephes and running on fumes, as our ancestors were. May we remember that we can have the capacity to press on. And may we care for ourselves and each other in the ways that we must, in order to face our greatest tasks, which still lie ahead. Shabbat Shalom.